Hello and welcome to Sam Biology class. Friends, today we shall discuss about genetic variation. If all members of a species have the same set of genes, how can there be genetic variation? The answer is that genes have different contrasting forms called alleles. In a population, for any given gene, there can be from one to many different alleles. However, because most organisms carry one or two chromosome sets per cell, these organisms will have only one or two alleles per gene. The alleles of one gene will always be found at the same position along the chromosome. And allelic variation is the basis for hereditary variation. Allelic variation is the basis for hereditary variation. In genetics, it is important to analyze variants. It is also important to understand the types of variations in population. Genetic variation can be classified into two different groups such as discontinuous variation and continuous variation. Allelic variation contributes to both. First one is discontinuous variation. Most of the research in genetics in the past century has been on discontinuous variation. This is because it is the simpler type of variation and it is easy to analyze. In discontinuous variation, a character is found in a population in two or more distinct and separate forms called phenotypes. Blue eyes and brown eyes are phenotypes. Similarly, blood group A or blood group O are also phenotypes. Such alternative phenotypes are often found to be encoded by two different alleles of one gene. Another good example is albinism in humans. In most of the people, the cells of the skin can make a dark brown or black pigments called melanin, which give our skin its color. Albinos are always rare. They completely lack the pigments in their skin and in the hair. However, they are found in all races. The difference between pigmented and unpigmented skin is caused by two different alleles of one gene which encode the enzyme involved in synthesis of melanin. Although allelic differences cause phenotypic differences, it doesn't mean that only one gene affects the skin color. Now it is known that there are several genes which influence the color of the skin. However, the difference between pigmented and unpigmented skin is caused by two different alleles of one gene. The allelic composition of other genes remain irrelevant. In some cases of discontinuous variation, there is a predictable one-to-one relation between the phenotype and the genotype under most conditions. In other words, two phenotypes and their underlying genotypes can almost always be distinguished. For this reason, discontinuous variation has been successfully used by geneticists to identify the alleles and their roles in cellular function. There are two categories of discontinuous variation. One is polymorphism. And the other one is mutants. In a natural population, the existence of two or more common discontinuous variants is called polymorphism. Various forms are called morphs. It is often found that different morphs are encoded by different alleles of a single gene. Next, what is mutants? Rare exceptional discontinuous variants are called mutants, whereas the more common normal phenotypes is called wild type. Second type of variation is continuous variation. A character showing continuous variation has an unbroken range of phenotypes in a population. A character showing continuous variation has an unbroken range of phenotypes in a population. Measurable characters such as height, weight, skin and hair color are good examples of such type of variation. Intermediate phenotypes are more common than extreme phenotypes. In some cases, all variation is environmental and it has no genetic basis. In other cases, the difference is caused by allelic variation in one or more genes. For most continuously variable characters, both environmental and genetic variation contributes to differences in phenotypes. In case of continuous genetic variation, there is no one-to-one relation between genotype and the phenotype. For this reason, little is known about the genes underlying continuous variation. Continuous variation is encountered more commonly than discontinuous variation in everyday life. One area of genetics in which continuous variation is important is plant and animal breeding. So friends, this is all about types of genetic variation. For more updates, please subscribe my YouTube channel, Sam Biology Class.